Hey folks, welcome to October's first wasmCloud community call. I've got a fairly short agenda today, mainly just updates on continued development on the next version of wasmCloud and Wash. And I also wanted to highlight that I released a GitHub Actions toolkit. I showed a mostly working version of this last week and did a quick walkthrough. I'm going to show it to you working end to end today, and some of the benefits of that, and also some of the features that I'm working on for Wash. Um, does anybody else have any agenda items or anything else we should run through or questions? I know we've been pretty active asking questions in wasmCloud, and hi Brooks, if you watch this, we miss you. He's been out on vacation having an awesome time, and that's why you're stuck with me again today. Sorry. But he'll be back next week. So first things first, let me show you GitHub Actions with wasmCloud. So over here, I cut a new release last week. I didn't major version it. I'm not major versioning anything that depends on the next version of Wash or the next version of wasmCloud, but this is in that push of getting everything in place before we start cutting the final release candidate and doing the major version rev. So here is a mono repo that includes one action here that is actually out of that mono repo. So over here it is in its own GitHub repo, and this is something I had to do to be able to put this action in the GitHub Marketplace. And so I did this so that people have an easy way to find it, sort of like the canonical way to set up and install Wash. Now this one, I did give it a release candidate because I'm not really expecting to make too many more changes to it. It's feature complete, but it's not ready to be a stable major version until Wash is out as a stable major version, because it's designed around the next version of Wash, which we're currently on beta 9. So every time we've added a new feature, we've been cutting releases just 1-to-1. And we've been making really good progress on that. This includes now plugins that you can install. And there's a plugin I've been iterating on quite a bit. I'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward. But essentially, you can install Wash and immediately set it up. And this will leverage the cache. One key change in the past week since last time we chatted is that I set it up to install and attest from binary versions of Wash. So if we go and go back to the top level actions repo where we've got a couple of other actions that are running here, I think it's pretty interesting to take a look. If you look at the CI that we're running for this, it actually treats it as like its own project, so you can actually see what a real run would be. And so if I look at the continuous integration for it, you'll see this kind of helpful feature. Now we're always creating attestations if you're doing the publish operation and you opt into doing attestation. And this is built into GitHub's like native integration for attestation. So what I can do from the GitHub CLI, for example, is say gh attestation and then ask it to attest which artifact we're using. Now, where that actually is getting used, well, in theory, you should be able to use it against any component that you build and publish with this action. But I'm also taking advantage of this for that setup wash action as well. Part of the reason why I opted to install from source and then always reuse from the cache in the first version of this was because it's not considered a security best practice to install from something like binstall. It's probably fine, but since I was making something for other people to consume, I wanted to go the extra mile. And so that's why we're now, when we build Wash, we create an attestation for the binary build of Wash. Actually, I meant to pull that up too. So when we do this release for Wash, you'll see that I added this extra verification step. I've got SHAs for it, and because this version of Wash is now attested, if you look at the install for this, now let's search for -b, and here, actually, you can see that you can opt in to making sure that we're verifying that this artifact has a provenance chain and it's been signed and attested. So now that we've got signed artifacts that we're publishing as part of the WASH release, we also now have this installer for how you install it. You can opt into Attestation from that, and the setup WASH action itself does that always. You can't opt out to it. We don't trust. We're making sure that whatever we're installing in your GitHub workflow has been attested, and then once it's installed there, we cache it. So that's the key change for this one that's happened over the past week. Next thing that's kind of interesting is that inside the actions repo, I showed you that we're also have a publish action that you can just drop into one of your existing workflows. If I open this up, you can see that in this case, I did this for a REST type component, and I used a tool called Cargo Auditable. One piece that's kind of neat about this is that this is Wasm enabled. And so Cargo Auditable, when I do basically a wash build, which then runs a cargo build, the output obviously is a .wasm, but it's a .wasm that includes the SBOM of the chain of the basically what cargo knew about. And right now that's happening, being built with first-party SBOM support in upstream cargo, but until that's done, folks are using Cargo Auditable for this. Again, opt in on SBOM generation if you want it or not. If you want it and you're building with a Rust project, you can use the action that I published here called setup cargo auditable, which basically configures Wash to build with Cargo Auditable and not just like default cargo. You got to make sure that you put it before your Wash build, but otherwise, to use it, this Wash build output is now immediately attestable. So that's that action. Next one up is Wash build. It's exactly what you think it is. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but the handy thing is that we do produce output, so it's really easy for you to figure out what .wasm got built. And what's nice is that you can do this in a language agnostic way, because if you think about it, when I do a cargo build, obviously it goes to .target blah blah blah. If I do an npm build, it's going to go to maybe /dist or somewhere else. Seems like every different npm technology that's like a roll-up equivalent does it and puts it in somewhere else, a special place. So having a common easy way for all of these different GitHub workflows to know where to look for the artifact path and what to expect and build on top of. That's sort of the basic idea of why you would want a wash build action. But it felt like something that didn't need to be published to the GitHub Marketplace, although I could be convinced if you think so. But right now it's just a composite action. And the way that you could depend on it and the OCI publish one is effectively either, well, in this case, I'm doing a local reference. Let me give you one other example of another project that I've been building. And just successfully built. And the way that I refer to some of this stuff for a publish, actually, let me open up here, publish. I publish just like this right at the end. So I use that build. I do OCI publish at the end, and also have attestation enabled.
Bailey,
So
are you sharing your screen?
I thought I am.
I can see it.
You guys see it? Okay, maybe it's just me.
Publish.yaml.
All right.
Yep. So I just gave you an example of a publish.yaml that takes advantage of all these actions. And the main thing I just wanted to highlight there was you don't have to have something in the GitHub Marketplace to be able to refer to it from the GitHub repo and be able to just compose it in. The reason to put something in the Marketplace is basically for discovery, so that when somebody searches on the Marketplace, they find it. And so setup wash, I think, is our like hook to get them started, and then that'll refer them to all these other actions that we've built out. And that last one being that publish, that gives you attestation. So that is the quick walkthrough on just the updates on the GitHub Action Toolkit. Feedback, contributions, totally welcome. I think it's working really well for a Rust component. I've got a couple other changes that I've been cooking that make it work well in a lot of other scenarios for other languages, but the TLDR is, for the most part, it's language agnostic, and you can just slot it into existing workflows. The trick is whether or not you publish to a well-known location that we know to pull the artifact path out of. Oh, I have been totally ignoring chat. I'm sorry. I am not Brooks. Okay. Oh, okay. It's just on the screen share. Okay. Anybody else have a question about those changes? Or yeah, any discussion in that zone? I'm sorry I keep starting all these calls with, hey, let's talk about CI, but it's really important to find, especially when you're building a CLI tool that you intend for people to build through CI, to make sure that we've got that story buttoned up before we cut the release. And one example of why I think that's super important is what I ran into. So I created my own plugin. My plugin is taking advantage of a feature that's part of Wash, which allows the plugin to basically execute commands on the host. It's obviously a privileged operation, and so we say, hey, do you want to allow this copy to happen or this git clone to happen? User says yes, and then it happens. But what about when you're running in CI? Nobody's there to say yes, and it's not a TTY shell. So what do you do? I've added a non-interactive mode that if it's a non-interactive shell, then we just go ahead and run in that mode by default. And that'll allow us to do this in a CI workflow, which is what I needed. So that's like one of the features that has landed inside Wash over the past week. I think this one was handy to have, but there's a couple more major feature changes that I want to make before we call it ready for a release candidate. Another one of those that I started on is this one here, and that's the idea of adding volume mounts. Because right now, what we essentially have is every plugin effectively has its own Scratch cache directory, and we just mount that in if the component requests a host import of a file system, and then if you're a plugin, you probably are either copying files into that or generating them there, and that's like your own little sandbox, and nobody's really supposed to mess with it. And the plugin that I was using, that Brooks helped write this side of it, where he had it basically copy the Scratch results at the end with a host exec, which is one of those privilege operations, which is why I ran into having to fix that non-interactive feature. It basically, at the end, copies out of the Scratch back to wherever the real path is on your host system. And that's pretty weird, I think, and unexpected. And I talked to Brooks before he headed out, and he agreed, like, that's probably something we want to change. And so the basic idea here is similar to what Lucas had showed last week about how the next version of the hosts and the workload spec has a concept of volume mounts. I'd like to introduce and propose that we have the exact same thing for when you're working with Wash and you're working with plugins. Load them with the same kind of flow with a volume mount. And that allows me to basically have a couple different pre-openers. Like, sure, maybe I do still want to have a plugin cache Scratch directory, but maybe I actually just, when I run my Wash plugin in my projects directory, I just want to mount my current working directory straight in and modify in place. So that's the main goal of this change. I'm still working on that. I think there's a little bit of alignment to do between this one and the pull request that Brooks has up for the runtime, which is a bit of a chonker, and I don't want to get in his way. And since he's going to be back soon, I'm gonna kind of just avoid that. But this is in relation to what Brooks had walked through 2 weeks ago. So once we land this, I think we've got a couple more features to land, and then we're looking pretty good for Wash. All right. Well, those were all my updates. Do folks have other community updates or anything else they want to share? I'm gonna stop sharing. Nope. Hi, Colin.
Just wanted to make, cure the solipsism.
Woohoo! I'm not in a void. It's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks again, Colin. By the way, Colin's now one of the champions for WASI clocks proposal, and he's been landing some API changes and a new feature, time zones, which is a much needed one, much requested by Colin actually as well. But yeah, for WASI P3, which is cooking. We've got a release candidate out. Second release candidate out now that folks are implementing. And that's what Colin and I were just chatting about before this call started was, hey, I think it's time to do the WASI P3 implementation of the new WASI clock APIs. And yeah, Colin, if you need me to cut another release candidate of all those things, I can. I did it all for what was on main last week.
Yeah, I'll get it. Try to get it out this week. Unfortunately, it's gonna be some refactoring of how the clocks work at all because the code's gonna be totally different. But yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of that work is on track. We're on track as in we're working fast and furiously on it so that we would be where we wanted to be in October. And yeah, major shout out and kudos to Victor on the call as well. He's been making huge progress on the second reference implementation inside Jco that takes a component and then basically makes it run in a Node.js environment with all of the same WASI specs, but obviously in a totally different way than the way that wasmTime supports the new P3 WASI specs.
Yeah, really excited for 0.3. Just I feel like with all the stuff we've done around GPUs and cryptography, or I've done around GPUs or people near me have done around GPUs and cryptography, I feel like we can get WASI. Probably could just do WASI crypto and WASI WebGPU, get it all in there with P3 or 0.3 and really make something anyone can just compile to and not have to, don't even have to care that it's Wasm. It'll just run really fast and it'll just work. Won't even know. They won't even know they're doing WebAssembly. That's my goal. So
yes,
then we can get it all going.
Hi, Liam.
Colin, when you think about, the different choices for, what APIs you might use for programming around a GPU, WebGPU, what does it offer as far as like, hardware agnosticism and, the other value props that make it a good choice here? It's obviously integrated into, or maybe not obviously, but it is integrated into Chrome, Firefox, and Safari, right? Like it's a pretty ubiquitous standard at this point with, I think like TensorFlow JS, which compiles to WASM, actually uses it, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, there's a few different things. But yes. There's actually been a lot recently. I don't know. Are we still live streaming? Because I don't know if I want to. If people are gonna get mad if I say things.
Let me wrap this call up.
Okay.
And then the people are on. They're gonna be here for the
Yeah,
after hour.
I guess.
Which
Yeah,
they're
yeah. I
welcome to
don't.
do.
I'm not enough of an expert. I'm enough of an expert maybe to do things, but not enough to comment on standards and what we should be done. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot I want to add here too. That's definitely speculation. So, if anybody else, no more questions, no other discussions for wasmCloud. If so, thank you all for joining us today. And now you know what your incentive is to join us live and come join on the Zoom call too and chat with us. But if not, we'll give you a summary in the wasmCloud Slack if we come up with anything too cool.
I'll drop the Zoom invite over in the YouTube chat in case anybody hanging out over on YouTube. I think we also typically have a bunch of people that watch on Twitter of all places. On my
it's
sorry.
true.
But I don't know how to drop something in your chat. So maybe someone else can figure that out.
I'll try. All right.